Trojan family, what's going on? Welcome back to the USC LAFB show here on the LAFB network. I'm your host, Ryan Dyrud. Rivals just released their latest update for their top 300 recruits of the 2027 class. They do these updates roughly 3 to 4 times a year. They kind of sync them, preseason, after the season, after all the all-star games, which is where we're at now. So, we just wrapped up the Navy All-American Bowl, the Polynesian Bowl, some 7-on-7 camps, all that fun stuff after the season. So it's kind of the latest release of their updates. So you see some movement among the players, and they'll do more leading up until signing day in December. So this is not the finalized rankings. And again, as I've always said, Rivals, 24/7, ESPN, all great platforms, all guys, people that, work super hard to do these rankings, but they're not the Bible, right? Their rankings don't mean everything. There's always, teams should be evaluating on their own. And if they're just relying solely on Rivals or 24/7 or ESPN, you've got a bigger problem as a program. But they give a great baseline, and especially for us, when there's thousands of high school prospects, it really kind of gives a nice baseline for us to see where USC is in terms of standing. And obviously last year in 26, finishing with the #1 ranked recruiting classes across every platform and a ton of top California prospects as well. So it's always just kind of a good baseline testament to use to see kind of, what prospects USC is going after and where they rank within the industry standards. Not necessarily what the teams think, but, and this is what I'm getting to in this video, is you can see, and we're talking specifically USC, guys they are going after, and, even some of the guys that have already committed that were considered lower tier talent based on where they rank among the industry. But the industry now kind of catching up to what USC was seeing, because most of USC's commits, they only have 4, but most of their commits, plus a lot of their high-end targets, we've seen big bumps now from Rivals. 24/7 will have an update on their rankings here probably fairly soon as well. And so kind of shows you that, hey, let the dust settle, wait to see. Just because USC is going after a 3-star doesn't mean you need to, freak out and say, we should only be going after 5 stars. Like, these things are fluid, and a lot of these change as these players are, they were just juniors last year, going through a bunch of different circuits and now getting into their senior seasons. So let's get into it, shall we? Starting with the second, let's start with the first commit of the class. I was going to do the second, but let's start with Aaron Washington. And Rivals did drop him slightly in their overall rankings. They dropped him to the 24th ranked corner. Now, I think this will go right back up once kind of the season goes on. But he's still a 4-star, 24th. His industry ranking goes from 9th corner to 10th, so still in the top 10. And he's still ranked 86th overall on Rivals industry. He's 224 on Rivals top 300. So just their rankings by themselves, not including all the other sites. So a slight drop for Washington, but remember, he was injured pretty much all of last season and has participated in a couple of these all-star things. He was at the Navy All-American Bowl, which is where he committed to USC, but hasn't been as heavily involved as some of the other cornerbacks in his class. So I would not be concerned with this. And it's such a slight, like these guys are going to move up and down. The ones you want to see are the ones that skyrocket, and the ones that really fall from grace. Those are kind of the notable ones. A slight drop, a slight rise is really just, par for the course. So I expect to see him continue to go up. That's not just me being biased. He ran a 4.340 at his IMG. I think they called it like a pro day, but basically his IMG, before spring kickoff showcase, if you will. So showing elite speed. We know he has great cover skills and ball skills, which he displayed at Mater Day. So now it's just about him staying healthy. So if he can play a full season at IMG, he'll be more than a top 10 corner in this class when it's said and done, which is what you want to see for USC. Next, so let's go to the second commit in this class, wide receiver Eli Woodard. I said, and many others I think said as well, that this was a really underrated commitment. At the time, 3-star receiver. Rivals had him ranked as the 75th receiver in the class. And so a lot of people like, okay, sure, maybe there's some signs there, but this is USC. We should be getting, top 15, top 20 receivers at minimum. Well, as expected, you could just tell if you watched his commitment video and the way that he was getting talked about, you could even tell that at that time, people were like, yeah, this guy's way underrated. Like when you see his route tree, when you see what he does with the ball in his hands, when you see the speed, the athleticism, like he's going to continue to climb throughout this process. And he ultimately is one of the biggest risers in this new recruiting update for Rivals. So not only does he go from the 75th ranked receiver in the class to the 30th, 45 spots up. This is what I'm talking about. Like small drops and rises, that's par for the course. Look for the meteoric rises or the massive drops. This is a meteoric rise. 45 slots in terms of receivers. He is now the 30th ranked receiver on Rivals. He's the 50th on Rivals Industry, but again, that's because 24/7 and ESPN haven't updated their rankings yet, so he's still down in the 70s. He also gets his 4th star from Rivals. So goes from a 3-star prospect to a 4-star prospect for Rivals. So huge jump for Eli Woodard. And not that I was concerned, but now this receiver class with Woodard and Hale is looking pretty special for USC based on what the industry is telling and based on what USC already knew what they were getting in the kid when they were recruiting him. So this is why I say trust. Look who the offers are from, not necessarily the rankings. The rankings are nice, and certainly they do mean something. It's not like these guys are all idiots. But look at the offers more. Eli Woodard had a crazy amount of good offers before choosing USC. So huge bump for him. Awesome to see. Congrats to the young man. The other receiver, Quentin Hale, again, a slight drop from Rivals here. Still a 4-star. He drops to 18th overall receiver per Rivals. He is still currently 9th overall on Rivals industry rankings. He's the 98th overall player in Rivals, so still in the top 100 players, which is fantastic. And he's 52nd overall in their industry rankings. So again, not concerned at all about that slight drop. He actually won the MVP award in the recent 7-on or Elite 11 event, I think, or was it a 7-on-7 event? It's called the Opening, and Nike puts it on in Los Angeles just this past weekend. He was the offensive MVP. Put up a show, no one could cover him, one-handed catches. So slight drop, not worried about it. He's going to have a great senior season at Centennial. We'll see if he rises more from that, but I expect him to firmly finish in the top 15 of receivers of this class, probably more like top 10 across every recruiting database. So right now he is still top 10. He's 9th in the industry. I expect him to be top 10 in all of them, which puts him more like in that 7 to 6 range overall. So not a huge concern at all for there. The last one, no real change for Isaiah Vandermeer, partially because a lot of these updates come off of, like I mentioned, all-star games, skills comps, 7-on-7, not a lot of line play. Now, some linemen did see some stuff go up and down, but it's not as drastic as what we see from receivers, corners, quarterbacks, running backs, just because of these different camps that really don't involve linemen. So no big bump from Isaiah Vandermeer. As I've said all along, he will be a 4-star when it's said and done. Mark my words. Remember this. You can bash me if it doesn't happen, but I think there's no doubt in my mind, as long as he stays healthy his senior season at Santa Margarita, he will be a 4-star in this 27 class, and we'll see one of those meteoric rises that we're talking about. All right, a few targets now, and we'll just name a couple here. Jeremiah Adeyanju, the running back. He's been heavily linked to USC out of Arizona. Basically a no-star recruit. And so that had a lot of people concerned. It was like, man, why, USC, why are you going after a no-star recruit? And I was kind of like, well, look at King Miller, right? This was a new-star guy, walk on. We see how good he is. Like sometimes when you watch the tape, you see a kid, and maybe there's just so many running backs out there to rank. Well, Rivals has taken notice. Again, no-star guy, 6 foot, 210, 1,100 plus yards rushing, double-digit touchdowns last year. And guess what? Rivals now, he goes from a no-star to a 4-star, 17th ranked running back in the class. So from nothing to a 4-star top 20 running back, the number 4 player in the state of Arizona. And this guy is heavily favored to end up at USC. We're talking like on their RPM prediction, 99.7. He was at USC's junior day, and glowing review. USC kind of backed off on a lot of other running backs they were going after. Noah Roberts, some of these other high-profile name guys kind of backed off that. I even said at the time, I was like, yeah, this kid, look at the production. Great production, and you can probably get him for a lot cheaper in terms of NIL. When you go after a guy that's no stars, like, yeah, you're not putting all your stock in these databases, but in the negotiation table, it kind of helps. Well, that's not going to help anymore because now he's a 4-star and a top 20 running back in the whole class. So clearly the industry catching up to what USC already knew, and I'm sure we'll see 247 and ESPN jump on that bandwagon soon. Danny Lang, just talked about him last night, so don't need to talk about him a ton, but he rises in the rankings now. Rivals has him as the 12th overall corner in the class. He is in Rivals industry. He is also the 12th overall corner, and he is the 93rd overall player. That shows you how deep this cornerback class is. He is the 12th corner, but he's a top 100 player overall. Now, again, we'll see some shifts once we see a lot more of the linemen kind of move up in the rankings, because, again, this was more a time predicated to benefit skill guys. But that speaks a lot about how good this cornerback class is and how good Danny Lang is, who I expect to ultimately be a Trojan, joining his former teammate Aaron Washington. And then one drop, big drop we'll talk about. And I've got a lot of questions about this, and I definitely do not want to, these are such young men striving for their dreams. So my thing is never to pour on and say anything negative. But Duve Williams is a guy that's been linked to USC for a year and a half. I mean, it seemed like it was a foregone conclusion that he would be a USC Trojan. And he even said in an interview, like, they're waiting for me to be the first commitment. So whether he missed the boat on that and should have done that, or USC said, go ahead, pump the brakes, don't commit yet, go take your visits, do all this, and maybe they stop pushing. I don't know exactly, but he saw a big drop in these latest rankings. And based on people I've talked to and other things I've heard, is there's just a real concern on size and a little dip in production last season. And we'll see what he does senior year. I think he's still a talented kid, but I think the size is a little concerning and why some of these rankings drop. So he falls to the 34th ranked corner per Rivals. Still a 4-star. He's still in their top 300 at 267, but that is a pretty massive drop. I believe he was 4th or 5th. He was top 10, certainly. He's still top 10 in industry rankings, so we'll see if he can hang on there. He's still 8th overall industry rankings, 56th overall national player. But again, we'll see when 247 and ESPN updates theirs, if they stick with their original assessment or they kind of follow the lead of what Rivals just released, because that's a pretty big drop, going from top 10 to 34 overall at the position. I think he's still a really talented kid. And we'll see what happens. But it seems like he will not be at USC now. That could change, but it seems like Cal and maybe some other schools are kind of more the focus for him now, as USC is more focused on someone like a Danny Lang to close out their cornerback room for this class. Lastly, talked about him, I think, 2 weeks ago. Charles Davis, tight end receiver hybrid, kind of, right? Kind of plays tight end in high school, has a great relationship with Dennis Simmons, which is the outside receiver coach. So, like, where would he ultimately go? USC offered him. He said they immediately shot to the top. It was USC's like his dream school, dream come true. He was another guy that was very low rated in like the 80s. Well, Rivals now bumps him up to the 19th ranked tight end, still a 3-star, but he is now the 19th ranked tight end in the 2027 class. And so it'll be interesting to see if 24/7 kind of follows suit on that and where they ultimately put him down out of Westlake Village. 6'5", 187. Again, needs to put on more weight if he's going to truly play tight end. But at 6'5", has that elite height. And even if he doesn't put on weight, can be kind of that Deuce Robinson type hybrid who mainly only played receiver at USC, but was recruited originally as a tight end and kind of seen as that hybrid type that if putting on a little more weight, can play inline, but has the size and speed to play outside if needed. So again, just to show you that, look at who's recruiting the kid, not necessarily what the services say. He's got 7 visits scheduled with an 8th school involved. His first visit is next week, spring practices. He will be there, USC, on March 3rd. And he says, USC has always been a big-time school for me. A lot of my dad's friends went to USC. One of my cousin's dad went to USC. USC has been a big school for me since I'm an LA kid. They're actually recruiting me as a receiver and a tight end. So like I'm saying, hybrid here. From a receiver standpoint, USC is wide receiver U. They have a lot of history in the wide receiver room. As a tight end, as they were recruiting Mark Bowman, I feel like they know what they're looking for in a tight end, and I check all those boxes. So truly a receiver tight end hybrid type that Charles Davis is. Love where USC stands, and I think fans should get a little bit more excited about this. The recruiting services are catching up. He just had a pretty meteoric rise. Look at these other teams that he has visits scheduled. Ohio State, March 10th. Nebraska, March 12th. SMU, Cal, UCLA, Miami, and others are vying to get him on campus. So, I think he's an underrated prospect that's going to continue to rise during this process. All right, that'll do it. Here's your kind of quick update, Rivals update after their top 300 release. So I think good things for USC, good things in who they're pursuing and who's already committed. It doesn't mean a whole lot to them, but hey, for us on the outside, that certainly looks good in terms of who they are going after and who they are looking for. Jeremiah Adeyanju, that's the one to watch, that running back. Because I think that's one that everyone was like, why are you a no-star? That's your top running back lead? 4-star, top 20 now. Country's taking notice, so watch out for him as the number 1 running back, or the only running back potential commit for this class. Hit that like and subscribe. I've got an update on the edge position coming out here later today, an update on the offensive line coming out later today, or maybe early tomorrow. We'll see, and plenty more. So keep it right here, USC LAFB. Appreciate you, as always, family. What's up, Trojan family? Got to tell you about a quick update from our friends over at Sleeper. Remember, they're the number 1 sports app and absolutely fantastic for fantasy and daily fantasy, but they've just added a fantastic new features, and they've launched team picks. So now you can choose winners of each game out there, whether it's NBA, MLB. I know football's over. It's coming back soon. Don't worry. NHL, all those. And you just pick the team winner of each of those games. So here in Los Angeles, Lakers, whoever they're playing next. Do you pick the Lakers? Do you pick their opponent? Dodgers season just around the corner. Are you picking the Dodgers or are you picking their opponent? It's that easy. It's that simple, and it's that much fun. So aside from fantasy, aside from the daily fantasy pick'em, now you can do the team picks that they just launched. So download the Sleeper app today, number 1 sports app. Go and check it out and have a ton of fun, and make sure to keep it right here at USC LAFB.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.